So when I left Bible study Wednesday night, I was thinking about what word God wanted me to give you this morning, and I kept hearing the word joy. I heard it here, I heard it in the car, I heard it when I got home. But, you know, I always ask questions, so I said, so God, what do you want me to say to your people on Sunday? And then the song you just heard got stuck in my head on Friday. I heard it all day at work. I heard it all evening. I heard it in my dreams. I woke up Saturday morning still singing it. I said, okay, I got the hit. You want me to talk about joy. And you said, tell my people about my joy. Webster defines the noun joy as the emotion evoked by well-being, success, or good fortune, or by the prospect of possessing what one desires. The expression or exhibition of such emotion, a state of happiness, a source or cause of delight. Typically when we think about joy, we're thinking about happiness. And that happiness is attributed to something that has happened in our lives or something we have just gotten. But I believe that God wants us to know today that we can have His joy even in the midst of turmoil, heartache, and pain. So let's take a look at God's joy. Psalm 94, verse 19. When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought joy to my soul. Most of my life I've suffered from anxiety. It hits me mostly at night when I'm trying to go to sleep. I have a panic attack. No, I never sought professional help for it. I just simply suffered through the panic attacks, and I believed the lie that it was all in my head, and I should just deal with it, and I should just get over it. And then I read 1 Peter 5, verse 7. Cast all of your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you. So one night when I was having a panic attack, I tried it. I made an intentional decision to give all of my worries to God, to let Him take them. And the key was, let Him take them and not take them back. I let Him have them. And I remember being amazed at how the panic attack ended. And I had peace. Now, was I gleefully happy? Nope. Did the problem still exist? Oh yeah. But I had peace in my soul. That was God's joy. And as long as we are alive on this earth, we're going to have trials and worries and cares that cause us anxiety. But we can have peace even in the midst of the troubles by going to God and giving those things to Him and receiving His consolation and His joy. James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. I remember the first time we did a Bible study on this verse. Most of us were already going through trials and having our faith tested. And here James is telling us to consider it pure joy. He had to be kidding. Come on, let's be real. When we are going through really rough times, the last thing we're thinking is that these are times of joy, right? And I know, for me, I'm one of those people who I will go out of my way to avoid trouble. All right, so joy? But James says something really interesting here. First, he says to consider the trial we're going through. have to take a different look at that trial. We have to think about it. We have to forget about the feeling that we're going through for the moment and take a look at the actual situation. We need to look at it from a different viewpoint. And then he says, pure joy. Well, we already have God's joy because we received that when we accepted Christ into our hearts. So we have God's joy. So as we consider the trial that we're going through and looking at it from a different angle, we must not allow that trial to steal the joy that God has already given us, because the two are separate. Trials are going to come. So why would we consider this trial pure joy? Well, when we go through rough times, our faith is being tested. Think about the last trial you went through, not one you're going through now. One that you have gone through and you are on the other side of it. Once you made it through, your faith became stronger because your trust in God became stronger. You could see what he could do. It's like, okay, he did that. I trust you, God. And as your faith becomes stronger, your perseverance, your endurance, your patience becomes longer. And as our endurance grows, we become more spiritually mature, meaning we are becoming more like Christ. And that spiritual maturity is exactly what we're all striving towards. So when James says, consider it pure joy when trials come, we really have to look past the trial and toward the goal we are seeking, being more Christ-like, pure joy. Hebrews 12, verse 2. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Think about everything that Jesus endured at the cross. And yet, he kept his tongue, he kept his course, he kept his progress, he kept his joy, and he kept his love. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Even as he was enduring the cross. Jesus set an example for us at the cross. Jesus was looking past the cross to the joy that was after. And this is what we're to do when we're going through our trials and tribulations. We have to look past that and look at the joy that's coming once we're finished. 1 Peter 1, 8 and 9. Though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy. For you are receiving the end result of your faith, the salvation of your souls. We love Christ. We have faith in him. We have not seen him. We're not seeing him now. But we have faith in him. We trust him. And it's that love and faith that have led us to trust him. And when we put it all together, we're left with a deep feeling of joy. Love plus faith equals joy. John 16:22. So with you, now is your time of grief, but I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. In this chapter of John, Jesus is preparing his disciples for what's about to happen, his crucifixion and resurrection. He acknowledges that they are going to enter a period of grief. But he tells them that their grief will soon turn to joy and that no one can take that away from them. Again, Jesus is pointing them past the tribulation to the future. to a time of joy after they have mourned the loss of Jesus. They have no way of knowing exactly what he means, but Jesus uses the example of a woman in labor who gives birth. And she immediately, moms, we all can relate to this, she immediately forgets the anguish and the pain that she went through during that labor and childbirth once she's holding that baby in her arms. No one can steal that joy from her. No one can take our joy. The definition of the verb joy is to experience great pleasure or delight. We know that as rejoice. And the Bible commands us to rejoice. Matthew 5:12 says, "Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Luke 10, verse 20 says, "Nevertheless, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven." Romans 16:10 says, and again it says, "Rejoice, you Gentiles, with his people." Philippians 4:4 says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say, rejoice." And Revelation 19:7 says, "Let us rejoice and be glad and give him glory. For the wedding of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready." We are commanded to have joy and to rejoice. We see throughout the Old Testament examples of God experiencing joy and God's joy turning to sorrow. Right from the beginning in Genesis, during the creation, we'll see each time God creates something, you see the phrase, "and God saw that it was good." That tells me that God was pleased with his creation. That's joy, pleasure, joy. We see that pleasure turn to sorrow in Genesis chapter 6 when his heart is filled with pain because of man's wickedness. God experiences delight when he chooses the nation of Israel as his chosen people. We see God taking pleasure in making David the king over Israel. God's pleasure is his joy. God is joy. God gives joy. God experiences joy. God's joy is more than just a happy feeling because of something that we have. God is joy. And because God is joy and we are made in his image, then we too must be joy. God experiences joy through his creation, us. When we worship him and when we praise him, we give him great joy. He experiences joy through that. And God gives us joy. Our joy is a combination of our trust and faith in him, and that leads to joy. And as the trust and faith grow in us, so will his joy increase in us. Always remember that Jesus said in John 16, "No one will take away your joy." Rejoice and be glad in him.